What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be predicting the standings for the NFC South. This division includes the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, and the Atlanta Falcons. These predictions are based on last season, off-season moves such as the draft and free agency, and the schedule for this season. Remember, these are just my predictions, and if yours are any different, let me know what I got wrong in the comments below, and I hope you enjoy. The NFC South last season was somewhat of a disappointment. I don't think expectations were too high going into the year, but for their only playoff team to get blown out at home is nothing short of disappointing. Looking ahead to next year, I think 3 of the 4 teams took steps in the right direction, and I'm pretty excited to watch this division battle it out in 2023. These rankings were very hard to make, and I know it really is a coin flip for first place. So remember, only one team can win, so as much as an argument I can make for all of them, in the end, only one team can get it. Starting off in last place, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, after having Brady for the last 3 seasons, have been the standard of the South. They won a Super Bowl in 2020. In 2021, they lost in the divisional round on a game-winning field goal to the Rams, who ended up winning the Super Bowl later on that year. And then last year, they got blown out at home in the wild card as a 4 seed to the Cowboys. The Bucs looking forward right now only have Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, and John Wolford on their QB depth chart. I don't really think Baker's all that bad or as bad as people say he is in NFL discourse. I think he can be a competent starter again at some point. Maybe that be in Tampa, or at the very worst, a career backup that gets a couple of random starts throughout the year. Baker's a good bridge quarterback per se, but unfortunately it does not mean that he will be good this year or that the Bucs will have a good season coming up. As for their other quarterbacks, I don't think there's much to say. They really are just bodies for training camp and just to have some backups. Tampa Bay went 8-9 last season, taking first in the South in Todd Bowles' first year as head coach. The offense as a whole ranked 25th out of 32. They were second in pass yards and 32nd in rush yards. Obviously, their run game was a major issue. Their 2 main backs were Rashad White and Leonard Fournette. Fournette had 668 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3.5 yards per attempt, while White had 481 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3.7 yards per attempt. Overall, it doesn't always fall on the running backs when there's a lack of production from that part of the offense. A lot of it does fall on the offensive line as well to open up running lanes for the backs, but either way you slice it, just barely over 3.5 yards per carry isn't going to work. With the departure of Brady and the assertion of blank quarterback, probably Baker Mayfield, I just don't see this improving, as none of the quarterbacks are as good as a passer as Brady was. I know he wasn't that great last year, thus his retirement and his age and his family and divorce and all that. But Brady on his worst days, Baker Mayfield, if he was 6 inches taller and about 40 IQ points higher. The Bucs ended up releasing Fournette and bringing in Chase Edmonds, which I think is at the very least a lateral move, maybe even a good move as he is younger. I also expect White to get a lot more touches this year, which would be good for him to open up. The Bucs resigned Jamal Dean, Anthony Nelson, and Levante David, all which I think are good moves. I do think they end up trading Devin White, however. I know last season wasn't his best, but he's still one of the better interior linebackers in the league. And since the team is not in a win-now situation, they're most likely going to trade him while his value is still high rather than lose him for nothing in free agency next year. In the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Bucs drafted Kalijah Kancey, defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. I actually really like this pick, as you get to pair him up with Vita Vea, a veteran who's been a great defensive tackle in this league pretty much his whole career since being drafted in 2018, and will be there at least another 4 years after being extended. This will hopefully give them a great run defense for the next couple of seasons, at least in the near future. This offense still has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but they can't throw themselves the ball. Wirfs and Jensen are great offensive linemen as well. I really don't mind their roster, although it's not the best. It's the coaching staff I also don't have that much faith in, with Todd Bowles leading the way. In this division, there really isn't a clear-cut winner, so if Baker Mayfield comes out improved next year and some balls go their way, this team can end up competing for the 4 seed in the NFC. After looking at their schedule, I have them winning about 5 to 7 games this upcoming season. The team I have coming in 3rd place is the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are coming off of a weird bridge season where they went into it with Marcus Mariota at quarterback after trading Matt Ryan, who had been there for over a decade. Their second-year tight end Kyle Pitts also suffered a season-ending injury just 10 games into the year. I, for some odd reason, am a big fan of this roster. I somewhat like that they've been drafting offensive skill position players for the last 3 drafts. Drake London I'm still unsure about, and we'll just have to see, although he showed some flashes last year. Kyle Pitts, I already think, is a top tight end in the league just based off of pure skill and athleticism, but has been plagued by poor QB play and a severe injury last year. Calvin Ridley also took some time off a year and a half ago, was suspended, so they lost their wide receiver one as well. Bijan Robinson, I'm looking to be their best offensive player instantly. That kind of happens a lot with these rookie running backs coming out of college or pro ready. There's a lot of discussion as to why they drafted Robinson when they had Algier, who's a rookie and put up 1K yards and was a young bright spot for them last year. I don't hate the Bijan pick, as he is one of the greatest running back prospects of this century, since 2000. He's probably he definitely is the greatest since Saquon in 2018, and can step in day one and just change their offense. If I was the GM, I wouldn't have done it. I probably would have went defense or offensive line, but hey, I'm not the GM, nor am I a fan of this team, so I can just sit back and enjoy this little experiment they're running. The Falcons went 7-10 last season and 4th in their division. I have them taking a step forward this year. The Falcons were middle of the pack in terms of offense, ranking 15th total. They were 31st in passing, however, and 3rd in rushing. Some would look at this and say, as you should have drafted a receiver instead of a running back, but we shall see soon enough if this is true. As a defense, they were 23rd total, 25th in passing, and 23 in rushing. This team does have some pieces I like on the defensive side, including Jesse Bates, who was just acquired in free agency, AJ Terrell, Grady Jarrett, and now Calais Campbell. I know this team has an issue at quarterback, and I had just slammed the Bucs for this problem previously, but I think I'd rather have unknown in Ritter than a known in Baker Mayfield on my team. I also really like Arthur Smith as a head coach. Ever since he's gotten there, he's kind of had these subpar rosters, yet he has them competing every year. He really reminds me of Mike Vrabel and his skills getting the most out of these subpar teams, and this makes sense because he was his offense coordinator on the Titans just 3 seasons ago. After looking at their schedule, the Falcons winning 7-9 games this year. The team now coming in second place in the NFC South is the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are coming off of a pretty exciting free agency / draft while also getting a new coach in Frank Reich. If you're a Panthers fan, you have a lot to look forward to. There's nothing in football more exciting than getting to watch your top draft quarterback going into his rookie year, especially those first couple preseason games, because you know he's going to play just to get some time. And if you've had a pretty mediocre last couple of years, that is one of the most exciting feelings as a fan, is getting to watch your top draft pick quarterback play. The Panthers last year finished 7-10 and second in the NFC South. I expect a similar placement, but a more competitive South. Otherwise, I would have had them winning this division if this was last year. This team had to withstand a combination of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and PJ Walker. This is enough adversity to end any team's season. The team has revamped almost their entire offense, starting last year with trading McCaffrey mid-season, letting go of Mayfield and Darnold, and then trading their star receiver in DJ Moore in order to acquire the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. With that number 1 overall pick, they chose Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. This is pretty much the consensus first overall pick, and I agreed with it. There were a lot of discussion about whether he can withstand the NFL physicality, as he's only listed at about 5'9 to 5'10, 205 pounds. I don't see this being too much of an issue, as he can avoid some hits, but throughout the season he's going to suffer some big hits, and he'll just have to try and limit these in order to stay healthy. But if that's his only major red flag on him, then he should be alright in my opinion. The Panthers' offense ranked 20th overall while being 29th in passing and 10th in rushing last year. The defense overall was 19th, being 23rd in pass defense and 18th in rush defense. This team was just pretty mid all around last year, as it was somewhat of a transition year for them. Knew they weren't going into this year with the quarterbacks they had last year, and where the Panthers made major strides was in free agency, where they were just massive spenders. On offense, the Panthers brought in DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, and Miles Sanders, and Hayden Hurst. I like all these pickups as they'll make viable options at their position. Just shame they had to trade DJ Moore though, as he's better than all these receivers, but you need to trade assets to acquire assets. Thielen, Chark, and Hurst will give Young some quality veteran weapons to throw to, and Sanders will hopefully provide some in the run game to go along with it as long as he can stay healthy. Their defensive side of the ball is where I really like their roster. They have studs all around in Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, and J.C. Horn. They're really solid on all 3 levels of the defense, which is why I think they were still competitive last season in the South, even with their lackluster quarterback play. I also really like Frank Reich hiring, as he's someone who's been around the league for a long time. I think he's sort of scapegoated in Indy, where they provided him very little talent at quarterback for his duration in Indianapolis. I think Bryce Young immediately becomes his most talented quarterback he's had to work with, and I just think this is going to result in more wins than he had in Indianapolis. I think he's a good coach to mentor Young, and hopefully he's going to create an offense based on his strengths. After looking at their schedule, I have them winning about 8 to 10 games this season. Finally, coming in first place, I have the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are a weird team to me in a sense, as they come off really boring, and I think this is the team I'm least excited to watch this year in the NFC South, but I do think they have the best team and will ultimately win this division. With the addition of Derek Carr, I think they'll have the best passing offense in the NFC South, and I think that is extremely valuable, especially in today's day and age of football. A lot of these predictions are based on if the team can stay healthy, so I really can't predict injuries, but if Michael Thomas can play a majority of the games, and so can Alvin Kamara, this offense should be pretty lethal. Chris Olave also gets another offseason under his belt, and will have a veteran quarterback throwing him the football. The offensive line for the Saints is also very strong, barring any injuries. Last year, the Saints went 7-10 and took third in the NFC South. The Saints were 22nd in total offense in 2022, 16th in passing, and 19th in rushing, so overall they're pretty average on offense. But they were working with Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton at quarterback. As a defense, they were 9th overall, finishing 2nd in pass defense and 24th in rushing defense. The Saints defense is full of veterans who are getting up there in age, but still producing at a pretty high level. This unit includes Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, and Marshawn Lattimore. I'm also a fan of the head coach Dennis Allen, who's going into his second year as coach and was sort of brought into a tough situation with the quarterbacks he had on his depth chart when he took over as head coach, but I expect him to make the playoffs this year round. The Saints selected Brian Bresee, defensive tackle out of Clemson, with the 29th overall pick in this year's draft. This is good value as, like I said, they're aging on the defensive side of the ball, and they need to start getting younger. Like I said earlier, this team's success relies on health, like most in this league, and as I think there's a good chance the weapons don't stay healthy, I just can't base my predictions on injuries. If injuries do not occur, I see the Saints winning this division in a nail-biter. Looking at their schedule, I have them winning 9 to 11 games. So those are my predictions for the NFC South this upcoming season. I have the Bucs in 4th, Falcons in 3rd, Panthers in 2nd, and the Saints in 1st. This division doesn't have a clear-cut favorite, as in most cases in the NFL, so this can absolutely go either way. I just think, even though the Falcons and Panthers took steps forward, they're still very young, and especially at quarterback. I think this gives the advantage to the Saints in the most important position in football. If you have any different opinions, just let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching, and have a great day.